Settle into yourselves. As we ground in a story that maybe you're familiar with. Listen to a familiar sound that maybe you don't always take your time. Ground in our own heartbeats. Get comfortable in your seat and settle into your body and turn your attention to the sound of this heartbeat. Maybe even listen to your own. If you'd like, you can find your pulse with your fingers and feel the pulses of the waves and pressures sent out by your heart as it loyally ticks away. Just like it's done for your entire life. Feel free to thank your heart for all of its hard work, all the ways it's kept you alive. Feel free to take a deep breath. The breath of life that fills your lungs with fresh oxygen that will travel to your brain and your body as you experience today. This is your heart, friends. And it's doing a good job. And now, I invite you into our text as a grounding. No, you're good. Just kidding. As we grounded our, this text was kind of the inspiration for the whole series, and it seemed perfect for Val's sermon today. For kind of why we were curious with the secret life of peace. In Ecclesiastes, it says, "I said to myself, as for humans, God tests them so that they may see that they are like the beasts. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the beasts. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so does the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over the animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place, all come from dust, and to dust all return. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward, if the spirit of the animal goes down to the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot. For who can bring them to see what will happen after them?" And as we consider our connections to the beast, Val, it was her brilliant idea. At the beginning of our whole series, she texted me and she said, "What if our last one was humans?" What if that was the beast we ended on and we were like, yes. So I'm going to hand it over to Val now to end off our season.
I'm going to try holding this in my stump. My name is Valerie, and I think I've met most of you. If I haven't met you, I'll meet you soon. Who here has enjoyed learning about the animals during the Secret Life of Beasts series? Right? What were some of the animals we learned about either this year or last year? You can shout them out. Isaac? Do you have an animal that we learned about?
A snake.
That's right. Snakes. Anybody else? Maybe bats? Bats. Bees last year?
Lesbian seagulls.
Lesbian seagulls, crows, absolutely. And so octopus, learning about all these different animals and their abilities and their behaviors made me feel a little bit jealous. Like, what are my superpowers? What do we humans bring to the table? And I did text a story a couple months ago. Yes?
Nina has an animal.
What's that? Say again?
Crab.
That's right. Shawnee talked to us about crabs. Yes. And so, yes, I had the idea to talk about humans because I think that's a very interesting idea, thinking of humans as animals, especially because sometimes we have trouble reconciling this. because non-human animals, like us, are capable of beauty, flourishing, harmony, and also capable of destruction, violence, and disharmony. So, what actually is a human? If we look at the way scientists have classified living organisms on Earth, everything from tiny little bacteria to huge blue whales to stegosauruses that lived millions of years ago to cypress trees that have been alive for 200 years, humans exist in the category of animals, of course. Sorry. Right? And within the category of animals, humans are mammals, more specifically primates, and more specifically apes. Great apes, like us, descended from a common ape ancestor we share with gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos. And in fact, all mammals, including us, are descended from the same ancestral species that lived 100 million years ago. And that's why we share common traits, like respiration. So we've learned from all these different animals over the past few weeks that there's a lot of different ways to be yourself. And there's also a lot of different ways to be human. You might even say there's 8 billion different ways. So if there's so many of us, and we're all so different, what are some of the things that connect us to each other? To start off, from what I can tell, it's human to feel. Not only as in emotional feelings, as shown here on the feelings wheel, but also to feel as in sensing. Because we're always receiving information as we move through the world around us, all the time, through our senses. And generally speaking, we tend to think of 5 senses, which are seeing, taste, hearing, smell, touch, absolutely. But because the way the senses interact with each other, there's some debate among scientists about how we might actually have more like 20 senses, even more, when we consider things like proprioception, the awareness of your body in physical space, equilibriception, or balance, nociception, the sensing of painful stimuli to alert the body of potential dangers, thermoception, sensing temperature, interoception, the sensing of one's own physiological needs, like hunger, thirst, hormones, chemical signals, things we might not even be aware of. Maybe even the awareness of your own emotions and needs. The list goes on. So as you can see, there's many more than 5 senses going on there. So with so much going on, both internally and externally, that we're sensing all the time, things that we may or may not be aware of, we also have thoughts. And our brains are trying to reconcile the external experience with the internal one, and turn it into some sort of narrative that makes sense. Is it any wonder that our inner experiences are made up of complicated emotions, conflicting emotions, confusing feelings, all those feelings on the feelings wheel, given so much input and so much going on all the time? A few years ago, I went to see Dr. Robert McClellan. He's a psychologist who specializes in treating OCD, and he told me the brain secretes thoughts in the same way that a liver secretes bile. That's what it does, because that's its function in the body. And did you know that all that brain power, quite literally, uses a lot of energy? About 20 to 25% of your body's total energy is used just for basic brain functions. And in newborn babies, like little Forrest, it's even more. Their rapidly growing brains use 60% of their body's total energy. And that's why we have to spend so much of our time asleep. 1/3 of our lives. Your brain needs a break from all that consciousness. Your brain works hard all the time. It's okay to let it rest, take a nap, zone out. It's also human to care. Sometimes people talk as though humans are innately bad or predisposed to badness or in need of saving, but science has shown that the opposite is true. It's in our biology to take care of each other, especially the most vulnerable of us. Research into the brain has shown that when we perceive crying babies, a part of the brain that gets activated is the somatosensory cortex, this blue part. And this is an area of the brain that receives tactile and sensory information from the body. It's a feely part of the brain rather than a thinky part. And so when we perceive a baby crying and our brain reacts, we want to help out and we want to soothe and make the tears stop because we're feeling the pain too. And did you know that even smelling the tears of a crying person can reduce feelings of aggression? This 2023 research study had participants play a competitive online game that was unfair on purpose in order to rile them up and create a reaction. While the participants played this unfair game, their brains were being monitored by an MRI machine. The scientists used an aggression metric to measure how much of an emotional response the participants had experienced from the game. And then, participants smelled tears that were collected from people who were watching sad movie scenes. It's true. And after the riled up participants smelled those tears, the aggression metric measured was 43% lower.
I have so many questions.
I know. I'll send you that link. And in the study they write, we suggest that tears are a mammalian-wide mechanism that provides a chemical blanket protecting against aggression. This 2019 study found that participants who saw a crying face had increased feelings of trustworthiness to that face. When we see someone with tears running down their cheeks, we instinctively trust them more. We take it seriously. Maybe we are wired to care for each other, especially when we need it most. And who among us has felt even a little bit better after having a good cry? I have. Crying heals, and it lets others know when we are hurting. So I was telling my mom about my presentation that I'm doing, and I was telling her about this, and she was like, so what do we do about it? Like, how do we fix it? And I don't know how to fix the human condition, but I do know some things that we can all do that help. Things like expressing yourself, creating, playing. These are things that we are naturally inclined to do, that children do. One of the lies of empire is that these human activities like singing, dancing, sports, making art must be turned into skills instead of being seen as natural behaviors. Especially when art, music, movement, dance, singing are not only natural, but they help us process our feelings, they help us connect with each other, and they help us heal. As animals, prey animals, our bodies are always a little bit on guard, looking out for threats and trying to protect us. But in order to feel emotionally close to another human being, our brains have to turn off their natural vigilance a little bit so that we can form relationships and nurture our young. But we know from research into traumatized people that they can become stuck in a state of emotional and physical dysregulation, commonly known fight, flight, freeze, maybe fawn. And the brain is essentially powerless to talk itself out of that activated state. But simple, repetitive, relaxing group activities that involve movement, play, joyful engagement can help the body start to realize that it is safe, and then the mind can follow suit. In his book, The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk writes that other age-old, non-pharmacological approaches to health that have long been practiced outside Western medicine, ranging from breath exercises like pranayama, to chanting, to martial arts like qigong, to drumming, and group singing and dancing, all rely on interpersonal rhythms, visceral awareness, and vocal and facial communication, which helps shift people out of fight or flight states, reorganize their perception of danger, and increase their capacity to manage relationships. Fun things help us restore our sense of physical safety. Having fun is good for your brain. It's also human to be embodied. As we've talked about, our minds are incredible, and it can be tempting to favor our minds at the expense of our bodies. Like, the body is embarrassing, it's unpredictable, it has needs. It's like maybe if I could just be a floating head that moves from room to room, it would be simpler. But remember all those years of evolution? All those hundreds of millions of years have shaped the potentials, tendencies, and limitations of all people. For most of our history, we were nomadic hunter-gatherers, then much later farmers, and then later than that industrialists, and then later than that modern capitalists. We're sort of trying to run modern software on Stone Age hardware, our brains and bodies. I feel like every time I come back from doing errands, I tell Devin, the human mind is not meant to comprehend a grocery store. The amount of stimuli there. So, it's human to have limitations, and it's human to have needs. But being human is hard in a society that doesn't really have a vested interest in treating you like a human. Because capitalism and empire and people in power benefit when we believe in lies. Lies like, your capacity to work is tied to your worth. And when you work, you must work like a machine, unceasingly. Friend of the show, Karl Marx, is quoted as saying, constant labor of one uniform kind disturbs the intensity and flow of a man's animal spirits, which find recreation and delight in mere change of activity. I wonder if we can unlearn some of the lies that we've been made to believe, because you're a mammal, not a machine. It's okay to lay down and rest. And there's a lot of us, so we don't have to do it alone. Because as we've learned, it's in our biology to take care of each other. It's as natural as breathing. I wonder if it is in our own self-interest to encourage mutual flourishing. Maybe it's good for each other when we take care of ourselves. In her book, Rest is Resistance, Tricia Hersey writes, loving ourselves and each other deepens our disruption of the dominant systems. They want us unwell, fearful, exhausted, and without deep self-love, because you are easier to manipulate when you are distracted by what is not real or true. I'm going to finish up by showing a couple minutes of a video about a cave in France and the 35,000-year-old surprise that was waiting inside.
The Ardèche Gorge in the south of France. We're making a journey to the most important prehistoric sites ever discovered. An ancient testimony to the dawn of human creativity and culture. And it's hidden deep within these limestone cliffs. After the climb comes the descent into the darkness and the silence. The Chauvet cave system is vast. We have to stick to the slim walkways that have been laid, weaving through the stalagmites and stalactites that reach out from the darkness. Witnesses to this unbelievable time capsule are rare. Until recently, the only humans to set eyes on this place were our Paleolithic ancestors before a rockfall cut it off from the outside world.
Sealed shut for tens of thousands of years, this place was discovered by cavers in 1994 and then closed off to the public immediately. Very few people have ever been allowed in, but it's absolutely spectacular.
It's not only the ancient footprints and animal bones that excite archaeologists here. The most important features of this cave are also its most breathtaking. Hundreds of images adorn the walls, most of them animals. Drawn with charcoal and red ochre, they're surprisingly sophisticated. The artist artists seeming to have worked with the contours of the rock. They're so well preserved, they look as if they could have been drawn yesterday, but radiocarbon dating has revealed that they were painted 35,000 years ago by our early human ancestors. It's some of the oldest art ever found, and it's these paintings that are most at risk if the cave were to be opened up to visitors.
We risk contamination.
So seeing those drawings done by early humans 35,000 years ago makes me feel connected to those very distant relatives. Like the urge to draw or create. I also draw the animals in my life. There's a drawing I did of our cat and Devin. I like to draw my cats laying around the apartment. I like that they feel relaxed enough in my presence to fall asleep with their cheek in my hand. It makes me think about how we've been humaning for a long time, and we've only been existing in this modern world for comparatively a very short time. Yet some things remain constant. And as we enter our response time, I invite you to think about what makes you feel human. Maybe it's when you feel connected to other people, or connected to nature, or connected to your true self. Maybe it's entering the caves, like our early ancestors did. Sorry, Anna and I put up butcher paper here, so we can come in and draw on the cave walls. It's fallen down a little bit, we'll put it back up. But maybe it's entering the caves, like our early ancestors did, and leaving your marks on the walls.